Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video we're going to discuss the Apple TV Monsterverse show. Yes, now we've discussed this a lot on streams, but I'm doing this for the video viewers. So we all know what's going on with Apple TV. We all know about the show that they're going to be filming regarding the Monsterverse. So I kind of wanted to share my thoughts with you guys regarding the TV. Now, we've heard a lot of things. We even had, and we discussed this on the stream once again weeks ago when it first was announced, they even had some sort of call sheet where it was describing the characters, things like that. And then they were supposed to be filming at some point. I believe they're going to reschedule that now. But overall, my thoughts on this is that for the Monsterverse, this is obviously a good thing. This is something we speculated about for a couple of years now, at least on this channel. We've talked about how the Monsterverse could exist beyond movies, and this was one of the things, and now we have it. Now we have a show coming out. In fact, there's more buzz about this show, more news about this show than there has been about the Kong one, which is supposed to be on Netflix, the anime. We haven't heard too much about that. I'm hoping that changes soon. But look, I think for the Monsterverse and for Apple overall, this is a good thing. Apple is thirsting for subscribers. They look, their platform is not that great. The content they have is not that good. There's a couple of good shows in there, Ted Lasso being the top show, and with good reason. If you ever decide to run a trial to check out Apple, I would highly recommend Ted Lasso. It is a phenomenal show. It is one of the best shows going right now. So that's one thing they have going for them. But then they have shows like Invasion, which is just a horrible alien invasion show that, and I love that type of stuff. And I'm usually very forgiving when it comes to any sci-fi that's alien related. You know, I'm very forgiving because I love that kind of stuff. But that show was horrendous. It was extraordinarily bad. And I'm going to give season 2 a chance. They said they're going to do a season 2. I'm not very optimistic, but you know, sometimes shows recover. I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a prime example. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was a show that started off very weakly and got really, really strong, like from the 3rd season on. So there is a chance there to make improvements. But overall, outside of that, there's not too much. You got a series of Tom Hanks movies, and those are definitely good, solid movies to watch. I would recommend Greyhound. I liked the Greyhound a great deal. That was really good. So I would recommend watching that one if you happen to have Apple or decide to try the trial. But beyond that, there really isn't much. So I think this is a good thing for Apple because I believe the Monsterverse is popular and well known enough to make an impact on Apple. That's for sure. I think anybody who thinks that we're slightly beyond niche in terms of kaiju in the Monsterverse. I think tokusatsu and Japanese kaiju is still a bit of a niche, but I think Legendary and what they've done has given kaiju and monsters an opportunity to become more mainstream, and we're seeing that. You know, we know there's a Cloverfield 2 movie coming out. We know that Jordan Vogt Roberts, I believe, said he wants to do his own kaiju project, independent. You know, there's a trailer that came out recently, and I'll discuss it in specifically in another video, but The Lake, which looks very good. This is coming out in August, a foreign film that looks very kaiju heavy. So there's opportunity there. But Apple has a lot of issues. You know, one of the things that I experienced, I'm a huge Mets fan. In fact, I even thought about doing Mets content on this channel, but then it's like, wow, I'd have to do a whole different section for that. And 162 games, can I really do post-game reviews? And so I don't know. I'm still kind of thinking about it. But I'm a huge Mets fan, and I've been very excited about the offseason and this season. So the second game of the season, where all the Major League Baseball games were on Apple. So I had to watch the Mets and the Nationals on Apple. And I put it on, and the commentary was brutal. It made the game so hard to watch. And I sat there and I'm thinking to myself, no, this can't be the way that they're going to do this, because there's going to be more baseball games on Apple TV. So I'm not looking forward to that. So I do think Apple needs to kind of get in there and make some improvements with their content. The Monsterverse is a perfect... Apple TV, I think, is a good landing place for the Monsterverse. They don't have a whole lot to compete with there. There's an opportunity to open up the Monsterverse to people who like to binge watch shows or watch shows. I think if you put it on something like HBO Max, even though that seems to be the home of the MonsterVerse with all the Godzilla stuff on there and all the legendary movies, that's a lot of competitions to binge watch stuff. It's like, I don't think the MonsterVerse show would be like, it would keep being pushed in the back burner for people that come to HBO Max when you have great shows on there that date back years from HBO. I mean, you're talking about True Detective, you're talking about Oz, Game of Thrones, you're talking about, The Sopranos. I mean, and there's much more than just that. So when you have shows like that, a show like the MonsterVerse would kind of be put on the back burner, where I think on Apple, MonsterVerse has a chance to be front and center because a lot of their other shows are just not that great. So from that standpoint, I think this is a good move for Apple. I think it's a good move for Legendary. My big concern here is what the fans expect. And that's always a concern when we get MonsterVerse content, because the expectations are monsters, monsters, monsters. And I don't really think you're going to get that on this show. I think you're going to get, and I'm hoping for this, I'm always going to be even keel with my expectations. I've learned the hard way, never get too hype and never underestimate anything. And my expectation of the show, at least what I think is going to happen on the show, is it's going to be a show more focused on people, Monarch, which I'm hoping Monarch is a big point of storytelling here. I would love to learn about more about this organization, who runs it. Are they a good organization, really? I mean, that's always kind of been, a gray area. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you do want some clarity in certain elements about Monarch. Do they really want to study these monsters? Do they want to use them for their own self gains, things like that? So I'm hoping that's where we go. Now, the call sheet that we went over in the stream, I don't remember it all top of my head, but for the most part, it seemed like there was going to be a lot of Japanese characters. It seemed like it was going to be centered on a certain Japanese character and their family, a Japanese American. Now, this does make sense. One of the things I experienced when watching Invasion was that it was a global event, the aliens invading, and the show took it seriously in the sense that whenever they went to other countries to film certain scenes, like, you have your American characters, but when they went to like Europe, you're looking at characters that, strictly had like English accents. And then when they went to a place like Japan, because there's a lot of scenes that take place in Japan, all the characters spoke Japanese, and that's a good thing. Like, that gives it a little bit more sense of grounding. The unfortunate thing is that the story sucked. So I don't completely disbelieve that approach. Apple wants to be very diverse, I'll just use that word. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's not. Whether or not Legendary is going to take that approach here, like, I don't know how much Apple is involved in the production. I mean, I definitely know Legendary is, but Apple seems to have their hands in their projects. I think that's one of the reasons why they're struggling. Where something like Netflix, like, they don't necessarily get involved. They just throw their money at the project and then they see if it sticks. But I think whether that call sheet was legit with the character descriptions or not, my hope is that we'll get a more Monarch focused story. It doesn't mean we won't get monsters. I think we'll definitely get monsters. You can't promote a MonsterVerse show and not have monsters. I just don't think they're going to be front and center. I don't think you're going to get a lot of monster fights. Whether or not we even see Godzilla remains to be seen. I mean, you're talking about a show that, if it does even moderately good, you're going to have multiple seasons. You can't, how does that affect Godzilla in a sense that does Legendary have further rights to use him for a TV show? Was there something in the contract that explicitly says you can use him for shows whenever, but movies we have, you know what I mean? So I think people need to rein in their expectations of monster action. I think if you do see a lot of monster action, you're going to see a lot of maybe more screen time for the monsters that we've been yearning to see, kind of like the Methuselahs and the Behemoths of the world, but at a very minimum. I can tell you right now, unfortunately, that Invasion, the special effects on that show were not very good. So now you're looking at a show that theoretically would have monster action. How well can that be done? How much does it cost? A lot of these things play a factor. And when you talk about TV shows, you're really you really got to rein it in. And we can't compare it to a platform like Disney that has a substantial amount of money to throw at TV shows to make them look like movies. Apple, Legendary, these guys don't have that kind of money. They don't. So I think now the important thing here is the story's got to be good. And I think there's always been a potential for Legendary and the lore they've developed regarding Monarch and the Hollow Earth. I've always felt that is untapped potential. And I'm hoping they take advantage of that in this show. I'm hoping this is the show that gives more clarification to the Hollow Earth and Monarch and what their journey is, what their mission is, other people who work there. It wasn't just Sarazawa, you know what I mean? It wasn't just Dr. Grant. It wasn't the what's the name? Kyle Chandler character, Russell. You know, it wasn't just the Russells, you know what I mean? I'm sure there's many people who work there, you know? So, and we've met some of those characters recently. I mean, obviously Godzilla vs. Kong, we have those characters but I want to know more. I think casting too is key. One thing about Apple with many of their shows is you have a major character that is usually starring an actor that's very recognizable, and then the supporting characters tend to be less known. Ted Lasso is a good example. He's the lead, obviously, and then you have the supporting character is a woman. I forget her name, but she's been in a lot of work. You would recognize her if you watch like Game of Thrones, but for that, one of the more famous moments, if you watch Game of Thrones, when Cersei had the Walk of Shame, and there was a woman ringing a bell calling shame. Well, she's the supporting character in Ted Lasso. So, I don't know who they would cast for this. I wouldn't expect to see people like Aaron Taylor Johnson, or I wouldn't expect any major stars, but I do believe they have to put in some recognizable faces. And one of the people I can think about is Joe Morton. Joe Morton hasn't been in the Monsterverse a whole lot, but he has been in there. His character, in terms of the character he portrays, does have a history with Monarch. I mean, he plays, names. I suck at names. But if you saw Kong Skull Island, the black man with the glasses, I know somebody's going to say in the comments, so I'll thank you ahead of time. But I think a recognizable face like that would be a good thing. You know, this is an actor who's, you know, Joe Morton's a little older now. He's more part-time. I think he would do it. Even if he's not the main character, if he's a supporting character that's consistently on the show, to support a main character that maybe is not recognizable. But I do think they need to get some familiar faces in there. You know, some of the actors that we've seen in movies that weren't necessarily front and center, to get them on the show. So that's my hope. Some recognizable faces, a focus story on primarily Monarch, which I believe the show people are saying now is called Monarch, so that's a good thing. And then more information on the Hollow Earth. I believe we're going to get a lot of that in the next Kong movie, but I'm hoping that they also leverage that here. And who knows, we might even see some stories play out that were in the comics, you know. Now the show is supposed to take place right after the events of 2014. So it's going to be interesting to see how they navigate that, because from the time of 2014 all the way up to 2019, according to lore, there's no monster activity, you know. But that does not mean that Monarch was not on missions to find monsters. And we know for a fact that in those 5 years, they obviously discovered some, because when 2019 came out, Sarazawa said there were 17 of them. So maybe now I think this show is going to show us more information on Monarch's journey to finding these monsters and getting information about them. And then it'll be very cool to have like an episode where they find, like, you know, Behemoth, and they talk about everything involving him, you know, his behavior and things like that. Just more, I mean, that'll be such good stuff. And I think it'll make sci-fi fans buff too. Like, they'll get excited for that. I do think it's a good opportunity for them to bring the Monsterverse to more viewers. And if they do it well, now you're looking at possibly more fans maybe checking out the Monsterverse movies. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I'm looking forward to the show. I'm cautiously optimistic. You know, I'm going to keep it even until we get more information, until we see a trailer sometime in the future. But I think this is a good thing. This is what we speculated for years. This is what we've spoken about. And this is what we've hoped for. We've hoped for life after the theaters, to keep the Monsterverse going, to keep kaiju relevant. And I think it's working. and that's a good thing. I'm happy about that. So, but anyway, guys, that's it for this video. We'll definitely talk some more, and don't forget, Friday nights and Saturday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be streaming here, so you can come in if you have time and get involved, ask some questions. But like I said, we're gonna have more videos coming forward as soon as I pretty much get some more ideas. Like I said in my last video, I've got some things planned, but some of them are a little bit more involved. But we're definitely going to be having more videos going forward. So stick around, look forward to that. And if you had left and you said, hey, he did a video, definitely hit that subscribe button, because you're going to see a lot more of them. So, but anyway, that's it. You guys have a good one, and I'll see you all very soon.